Thank you. There's so many great women working in XR. Carrie's definitely one of them. Carrie mentioned I spoke here in 2019, and I'm going to play a little video of some of the things that have occurred since then.
Welcome to TRIPP. Bring your attention to the experience unfolding around you. Breathe in, exhale slowly.
Thank you. It's been a long journey to get here, and I've worked in the video game industry for a long time. I have had a wonderful career in video games. I have a deep love for playing video games, and it's given me a great life. There definitely, though, is an understanding that just the fact that I'm standing here is truly a miracle. I was not destined really to do anything of any significance in my life. I grew up in a very challenging environment as a kid. This is a picture of me and my sister, Vicky. Our mother was a heroin addict, and as little girls, we experienced a tremendous amount of neglect, and we were bounced around quite a bit. And, you know, I feel that I ultimately should have ended up having the life my sister had, which was really the same journey my mother took. It ends up becoming this family disease. The picture on the bottom right, or there, is the last picture of us taken together before she died from a drug overdose in 2012. And, you know, I often think about, why am I here and she's not? And one of the things that I have spent a lot of time thinking about is the contribution that playing video games gave me during a challenging world around me where I felt like everything was falling apart. When I played video games, I felt a sense of agency over the environment. I felt powerful. I saw myself as a maker. It gave me an interest in technology that I didn't even know I would even want. And, but eventually, I ended up in a mental health hospital. I had an episode that got me into hospitalization. And, you know, I did the experience today downstairs called Goliath, and it talked about a schizophrenic young man who was also a gamer. And I was so moved by it because it really communicated a lot of how technology had helped him and through, you know, his internal condition. And I found that to be the case when I was a kid as well. But in that hospital, I met a therapist. I was about 15 or 16, where a lot of this inner turmoil can really show up in people's lives. And the therapist that they connected me with for the ongoing support afterwards, she taught me how to meditate. I was in a highly agitated state, and she taught me this breathing technique, a Tibetan breathing technique, and it immediately calmed me down. And because she was mindfully aware and really, I think, saw something in me that she wanted to really help or save, her compassion, I think, transformed my life. And so when I spoke here before, I talked about that journey, and I'm still very moved by it because it's an example of how a single person can actually make a difference in our day-to-day interactions. And so the fact that I started meditating at such a young age, it allowed me to begin to rewire my decision framework. I started to make great decisions like marrying my husband, Vic, very kind-hearted person. I still am very crazy about him. He had a deep Tibetan meditation practice. He built a monastery in Tibet and an orphanage in Vietnam, and he just was a gentle, kind soul. And I had the good fortune of being a very early investor in Oculus. That's Brendan Uribe, the founding CEO of Oculus, with my husband, Vic. And we were trying the very first Dream Deck demo. And there was something about that day that I knew I wanted to work in VR. And it had more to do with how I felt coming in and out of that experience. But that was put on pause because shortly after this picture was taken, Vic was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and we were told we had 8 months left together, and he was gone within 8 weeks. And it really was, it was an amazing experience actually to go through that process with him, because we could see how our mindfulness practice, our trained awareness to just be present through something even as difficult as knowing that the time you have left together is few. And our meditation practice was really the key for us to have some very, very meaningful connections during that time period for not only us, but our entire family. And it was after his death that in the grieving process, I started to look at, what do I want to build? And I knew it was time for me to be CEO. I had been COO for a long time in my career, helping other people's ideas come forth. And this was about 1.5 years after Vic died. I started to think about, what does the company look like that I want to build? And TRIPP is the result of that. And when I came to Games for Change, in the beginning, I had just raised a bit of money to start building. I had a prototype working. We were starting to close some small enterprise wellness deals. And since then, we've raised over $28 million. And we've built a great team. We're a distributed team. And it is a joy to show up for work every day. I feel like it's a real gift of a life that has been very rich with all different types of experiences. And now we're at a point where we're bringing other like-minded people who want to make a difference with their work and do it in a way that can have real impact. And we really found our product market fit during the pandemic. We've had, we're getting close to 6 million sessions now in TRIPP, and we've seen 3x growth year over year. The pandemic was a challenging time, I think, for the XR industry to raise capital, but we got the growth that we needed through launching on the Oculus Quest in December of 2019. And since then, we've gotten to understand that there's a real need for people to have tools to give them this sense of agency over how they feel. And it's not just those suffering with mental health diagnoses. As we know, during the past 24 months, all of us went through a mental health crisis. Our users skew a little more male than female, and I think that's unusual for a lot of the mindfulness apps out there. I think that's the benefit of us being on the PlayStation platform as well as the Oculus platform. And it's something I'm actually very proud of, that we can connect with men specifically. We don't exclude women, of course. We have very loyal users, of all demographics, but men traditionally struggle with addressing their mental health needs and their emotional well-being. So I think this is a real opportunity for the video game industry as a whole to start to look at how we can give young men, especially, the tools to kind of manage their internal state. And so I'm excited about that. We also, are platform agnostic. Our goal is to be across as many platforms as possible. We're now we just launched a mobile app upgrade that has audio and video content on it. And by the end of the year, you'll see some pretty cool mobile AR expansions of our product offering. We're building on top of the Niantic Lightship platform and are proud to be one of their very first investments out of their real-world Metaverse fund. And really, having a research-backed foundation to all of our design decisions was important to us. When I first got funding, I went up to Stanford and I knocked on Walter Greenleaf's door, essentially, and said, help me build this right. Teach me how to collect data in ways that we can stand behind our design decisions, and also just not do anything harmful that we put out in the market. And it's really more than just XR meditation. I think everybody has kind of this mental model of meditation in VR where we'll stick you on a beach and a Celtic voice will tell you to inhale and exhale. But when we started working and developing in VR, we found that beach environments, while we have them in TRIPP, I have a mental framework for what a beach should feel like on my skin and what it should smell like. And when those senses were missing, we found it actually didn't feel as good as we thought it would. And so we leaned into what are the experiences you can't have in the real world. This is really the power of VR, is creating VR native experiences. And that got us thinking, how can we do things like, instead of telling you to inhale, let's show you your breath coming in and out of your mouth. Let's make you feel like you're floating up to another dimension, because you can. And so some of those things I want to talk about in a little bit more, about how we approach building out the metaverse with these native concepts, not trying to just replicate sort of creepy versions of the real world. And really, I think the biggest thing to note is this condition of looking at VR vertically, like VR, AR, and mobile. It's very short term, in just the same way that you're all walking around with something you call your phone. In the year 2000, when I started working in mobile games, I had a flip phone, I had a Nintendo Game Boy, I was carrying around an MP3 player, a Canon digital camera, and a Texas Instruments calculator. We're in that stage of this, but there will be a confluence into something that we call our glasses. And what will really drive adoption is the ability to get our apps hosted on the edge of 5G mobile edge computing, so we can stream very rich experiences with low latency turnarounds to lightweight headsets. So we're in that transition, and that is going to drive a tremendous amount of innovation, and that's what I'm here for. I'm like working out and taking vitamins just so I can stay healthy and long enough to be a part of that transition. Because for us as an industry, if we can just start to think interoperable cross-platform and how we scale during this transition, we'll have a lot to contribute to that. Because right now, when you think about whatever your definition of the metaverse is, it's a distributed ecosystem. You're going to have walled gardens, decentralized worlds, as well as the devices will drive their own access points. And we're even seeing products themselves are destinations when you look at some of the big communities online with Fortnite, et cetera, and Roblox. So our strategy is to get our apps on your devices, our apps on your platforms, and also to have presence in your world. And we've done some things in that area, which I'll talk about. But really, So I go back to this concept of why are we trying to simulate the real world? And we're already starting to see in the metaverse, like, a lot of people building the crappy things we've built in this world in the metaverse. I mean, why is land scarce in an infinite space? Like, it's just, and all of us are going, really? That's all you have, right? Is it only going to be about building a virtual mall that I take my digital twin to buy Nikes? Nothing against Nike. But I mean, there's just got to be more to it than that. And even just the concept of digital twins. Like, when I played video games, especially when I was younger, I didn't want to be myself. I wanted to be Battle Axe when I played Battlefield, and I was someone else when I played Sims, and I was a master builder when I played SimCity. We have an opportunity to explore different identity models. Does my avatar have to have a fixed gender norm? Do you know? And why only 2 arms? Can we create digital instruments that can only be played with 6 arms? Because these are the things we can do, and I think we have to get out of this sort of simulation box that is really, I believe, thwarting a lot of innovation. We did our first NFT drop last month. It was a collaboration. I know there's a lot of negativity in the games industry around NFTs, but what was really interesting to me about the concept was a very talented team named Luminance came to us and said, can we get your support with this drop? Because we had similar audiences. They have this NFT that is a programmatic fractal, and it's designed that's an optimal breathing pattern to sync your inhale and exhale to. And you can pair a heart rate monitor to it, and your own heart changes the experience. And I thought, well, this is a cool idea to support. And also, if it can help them build more things like this and get out in the world, this is really the idea, as opposed to kind of just focusing on how people have, manipulated these environments, with fraudulent behavior. We saw some of that activity early on with in-game transactions. We saw it in the early days of the internet. And I actually feel this reset is healthy, but some of the principles of it are really exciting, of decentralization. Artists, for the first time, are able to make a living and ongoing participation in secondary sales, which they were previously cut out of. So I think that there's some revolutionary ideas that can be harnessed on how to create new earning models and economies. One of the things we did in January was acquire the largest online mindfulness community called Evolver. They're in Altspace and Engage, and we just launched on Horizons. They're now doing 40 weekly live group events. Some of their Sunday events will have over 150 avatars attending. And, interestingly enough, and I know Sarah talked a bit about her work earlier, Sarah Tycho, that the most popular conversation in Evolver is around death and dying. And what we've seen in that group is the opening up of emotions behind what I've been kind of calling a digital veil. The anonymity of having an avatar allows you to perhaps express something that is difficult for you to express in front of other people. So I'm looking at this with a lot of curiosity and interest on how we can harness that sort of anonymous layer that creates what I'm seeing, a kind of a psychological safety to express difficult emotions in a way that might be more targeted for supporting people during mental health. I'm losing the word on it, but if they need some support in a mental health intervention, that we can create these more targeted groups that could potentially help them. And so I'm really excited about that. And so what I'm calling the mindful metaverse specific to TRIPP is our apps on all these XR devices. It'll be AR and VR, mobile AR, and then some of these very cool smart glasses like what Qualcomm's doing with the Snapdragon Spaces that will connect to the mobile phone. We're really excited about what that will do, getting head-mounted displays a little bit more ubiquitous in your day-to-day. We have our live community, and now we're going to look at how to bring more targeted community experiences to the market. And then what we're doing with Niantic with location-based AR is really interesting, where at the highest level, we're going to get you out into public spaces to do mindful activities, and then you will receive an AR gift that you can persist in the public space and see it in the context of everyone else's mindful activities. And there's a whole game mechanic to it that we're excited about getting real people using so we can harden it. And I always laugh, like a lot of the mental health gamification stuff I call lamification, because it's just kind of like, everybody knows who's been building games for a while that game balancing is difficult, and it requires a lot of iteration, and you need a lot of players to help you harden that. And I think I've seen a lot of mental health and wellness apps just kind of look at, here's your resiliency score. And it doesn't really drive enough of a connection to really change the retention model in the way that a really well-designed video game will. So we're excited about kind of bringing some of that out into this category of wellness. And then we just recently acquired an asset called Eden, and it's a world-building solution, and you can go in and create your own tools with it in your own personal spaces. And so you'll see us start to expand out into creating social spaces within the TRIPP ecosystem. And here's a little video of Eden. So it was really fun to do the due diligence on it, because we could meet in world and talk through it and look at all the tools and hop around different islands and create our own spaces. And I think it's going to be fun to explore how we can create these more targeted communities, but allow other people to come in and hang a shingle if they want to create wellness-focused experiences. And we just upgraded our brand and launched new website, new mobile app, and you'll see more evolve from there. And then for us, we are expanding into enterprise wellness as well, and I'm really excited to help be a part of addressing, how we show up at work, and really make the focus on mental well-being the same proactive approach to how we address our physical health. Like, why do we wait for us to be diagnosed with some kind of condition to take a pill for the rest of our lives? We can proactively build the internal condition that can help us navigate challenges, like how I did when Vic got diagnosed with cancer. I didn't just show up with that resilience. It was decades long of a daily mindfulness practice that allowed me to go through something really difficult that all of us are going to experience. And so we have a separate brand called PsyAssist, and it is our clinical offering. We're doing a pilot right now that is using TRIPP to support ketamine treatment, especially in the psychedelic naive, to reduce the anxiety before that first and second session especially. It's got a mobile app as well that can support you in between treatments, and we're very excited about its commercialization, which will be before the end of the year. We're just kicking off the pilot study right now so that we can sell in the channel. And then because we're commercially available, we make our app, anybody can grab it and study it. We would love to have you study it. I had an investor once say to me, well, what if the data comes back and it's not that positive? And I went, well, I kind of want to know that, right? And so I just found a study that was published online about using TRIPP with adolescents and ADHD over a 21-day period, and it was a really well-designed study. So if there are any researchers, we can help you get access to your session data. We don't get involved in the study design unless it's something specifically like what we're doing commercially in the ketamine space, but we would love to have you study our app, and especially as we launch new experiences. And really, I think what I'd like to just end with is, how do we use these tools to really enhance the human experience? And this is why I think it's important for us to look at, it's not about just, my life sucks, so let me build a slightly better version of it digitally. It's really like, how do we drive a deeper connection to self? I can tell you that some of the most meaningful emails we've received during the last 24 months have really kept me going as an entrepreneur when people tell us that our app actually made a difference in not only their mental health during the pandemic, but for their families as well. And it's just the beginning, not that we're so great, we just happen to be timed right and get something out that was accessible to people. So it's really, for me, the main focus as an entrepreneur is how do we build the distribution breadth to reach more people? And as an industry as a whole, we have the capability to do it. And if we can focus it on supporting people in ways that will allow them to not only receive support from communities that are helpful, but also to get a sense of purpose like we have as a team on giving support, which is also proven when you're like in 12-step recovery, the community is a big part of the success of the individual's journey in recovery. I was at the VA recently, Carrie was there as well at an immersive summit they did, and they also said the same thing, that when veterans who are struggling with PTSD form support groups, they actually do better with the support groups combined with the treatment that they're going through. And as I mentioned before, like new earning models that can drive positive behavioral changes. I mean, this is like the perfect opportunity for the games industry, to really take a lot of the free-to-play mechanics that we've all been exposed to for a while and apply it to driving positive changes, not only in the individual's lives, but even in whole neighborhoods and larger community sets. And, we look at the power of how the internet has contributed to crowdsourcing innovation and ideation. I think the Human Genome Project is one of the best examples of that. And if we can aggregate in the metaverse and think about contributing interfaces to build something bigger than even our own ideas. This is something I'm really excited about with TRIPP, because we're focused on building the distribution channel and we're already starting to distribute other creators' content. Eventually, our platform will look more like tools, and this was why we acquired Eden, was so that you can come and build the experiences you want to share with the people from this place of compassion, which I think is something that we all need to return to as a community. And then, as I mentioned, new identity models I think are really important, because in that experience downstairs that I tried, Goliath, it really showed me the power of how we relate to ourselves, and video games can become a really powerful tool to change and reframe that experience with self, and it's something we definitely embrace at TRIPP. And the last statement I really would like to say is I think that wellness should be something that's proactive, not a reactive response to, a diagnosis. That ultimately, we should get to the point where we just call it health, not mental health, and reduce that stigma. Taking care of how we are inside affects our outside. There's so much science to support that. And the same way that even physical conditions can really impair our mental well-being. I saw that with my husband, with his journey through cancer. And then as a caregiver, it has a ripple effect all around us. And so my hope is that when we come back to Games for Change in the next 4 years, that there are many, many, many more companies like TRIPP with this mission to give people tools, that give them a sense of empowerment, that help them facilitate their own well-being in a way that doesn't replace therapy, but it augments their day-to-day sense of self, their sense of purpose, and their overall happiness. Thank you so much.